Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over a college football game preview and prediction on one of the big matchups coming up in the Pac-12 in Week 11 of this season, and that's going to be between the Oregon Ducks and the Washington State Cougars. And both these teams, of course, are off to 1-0 starts. Oregon had a great win over Stanford last week. Washington State is also coming off of a win, and both of these teams moving forward, I think, could be big contenders in the Pac-12 North especially. And so that's why it's going to be such an important matchup here today, or here this weekend, between both of these teams. And we'll be going over a full preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with their team trends. Last week, Oregon beat Stanford 35-14 in the first week of the Pac-12 being back, and that certainly was the game of the week. I'd say in the Pac-12 last week between Oregon, of course, which is now without Justin Herbert. They've got Tyler Shough quarterback, and all around he had a decent game, but Oregon, they had a pretty comfortable win there by 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, for Washington State, they beat Oregon State 38-20 was the final score there, and Oregon State being a team that I think has got a lot more talent than last season, and considering how much I think Oregon State has for potential, that was a pretty good win there for Washington State. And for the winning streaks for both these teams, of course, pretty obviously they're off to 1-0 starts, which means they're both got one game winning streaks. So both teams are off to good starts. It's definitely important to win that first game, especially in a short season like this. Like, just looking at the Pac-12 this year, I think you've only got 6 or 7 games, and that just makes every game so much more important, because usually you got 12 games in any regular season, which, considering every game in a 12-game regular season schedule is so important, it just makes these the shorter season that much more important to win every game, and it just makes every game so much more important. So for both these teams, that just makes it why it's just such a crucial matchup between both of these teams, is because, once again, the time is limited. We've only got a few weeks remaining already of the Pac-12. Basically, we're already through halfway of the season if you're thinking about a full season here. But once again, this game's going to be on Saturday, November 14th, 7 p.m. Eastern in Pullman. Washington State will be our home team here. Spread currently says Oregon by 9. ESPN FPI's got Oregon by 84%. And then Vegas Prediction has got Oregon by 11 here, 38-27 being the final score prediction. So all three of our sources are saying Oregon pretty easily here. The spread actually is going pretty light on the Oregon side right now. A 9-point advantage isn't usually all that high of a spread. So, Oregon's somewhat favored there, but the Vegas prediction does have Oregon by 11. So it's not much of a surprise here. Of course, Oregon has got a much better recruiting class and a lot more talent than Washington State does. It's just a matter of which team can execute better. But here's their second person for this game. Oregon currently has 35 points per game. Of course, this is only through one game, so these are basically your stats from last week. But Oregon did have 227 passing yards last week. They had 269 rushing yards. So all around, the rushing game was really good for Oregon last week. And then for yards allowed, they had 216 passing and then 197 rushing. As for Washington State, they had 38 points per game, 28 points allowed. They had 227 passing, 229 rushing, so they were pretty even there between passing and rushing. And then they had 329 pass yards allowed, 122 rush yards allowed. So they allowed 330 passing yards to Oregon State last week, which is, it's really impressive for Oregon State, but for Washington State, that's not very good, especially considering the quarterback for Oregon State is actually new this season because Jake Luton had graduated. But it's kind of surprising to see Washington State allow that kind of yardage. But in the end, I think both teams are all around looking pretty good there. If you look at Tyler Shough quarterback for Oregon last week, he had 227 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, which really is not that bad for a first career start, especially for a team like Oregon, which, of course, you don't want to be throwing any interceptions. That's really what kills your games. But, he did have 227 yards, which is pretty good. So all around, wasn't all that big or all that bad of an affair for him. And then looking at the Washington State quarterback, he also had 227 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, though, and 1 interception. So both quarterbacks had very similar games between each other, between these two teams last week. And, the only difference here was that Washington State's quarterback had scored 2 touchdowns instead of 1. But as far as it goes for the rushing game, of course, besides C.J. Verdell for Oregon, he had 20 attempts for 105 yards and a touchdown. And McIntosh for Washington State had 147 yards for a touchdown. So that's how it looked for your top running backs last week. But all around for both of these teams moving forward, the offenses look good. It's just a matter of which defense can be better at this point. Key points, both teams are off to great starts for sure. Of course, it's huge once again, and especially as short of a season as this is, to start off with a win. And that's something that we've seen out of all the other conferences, especially in the Big Ten so far. You got to start off with a win because, Iowa and Minnesota, they did not start off with wins, and they were both expected to be good teams this season. And now they're sitting at 1-2 apiece. which is not a position that you want to be in, especially in a short season like this. And especially, once again, if you're wanting to make it to the Pac-12 championship or to your conference championship game in general. Yeah, quarterback Tyler for Oregon, he had a great first start with the Ducks. He definitely has got a lot of potential, I think, moving into the future, so watch out for him. But, I mean, this is an important game for both these teams especially. I mean, for one of these teams to go 2-0, I mean, whoever goes 2-0 in this matchup, I think, is going to have a good chance to put up a really good season. I mean, there's a chance that the winner of this matchup is going to represent the Pac-12 North in the championship game because, I mean, once again, the Pac-12 North is sort of wide open right now, and especially for Oregon being a team with as much talent as they have. I think Oregon, if they can win this matchup, they've got a really good chance to make it to that championship game at the end of the season because it just shows how much talent each one of these teams has. But in the end, here's what I'm expecting for this one. I think Oregon's going to get the win here in the end by a score of 34-24. I think your halftime score is going to be close. I think we see a 21-17 lead for Oregon at the half, but it's going to be a close one between both these teams. I think Washington State does hang around for the majority of this one, but we're going to see a 10-point win by Oregon in the end. I think the Oregon Ducks, once again, they've got a much better recruiting class than Washington State. They're much more experienced as well than this Washington State team, and I think in the end, Oregon is just a better team in the end. Probability is going to be 65% towards Oregon, and honestly, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see Washington State pull the upset here. Like, if you told me that Washington State was going to pull an upset in this game, I really would not be surprised. I mean, everything is so unexpected anyway in the Power 5 conferences right now. But I've got Oregon getting the win here. 34-24 will be your final score. But then again, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup. Let me know your score predictions, all of that down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But then again, thanks again for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this preview, slap a like on it, subscribe as well. And yeah, stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I'll see you later.